and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman Live. It is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. I'm Julie Hartman. We've got Sean McConnell in the producer's dungeon. Hello, Sean.
Yo!
Great to be with you. By the way, Sean, I can't hear you in my ear. Maybe during one of the videos we can fix that. I think I'm hearing you from a nearby speaker, but that's okay. I hear Sean enough throughout the day. Don't necessarily need...
You don't hear me?
I actually can, a little bit. Forgive me as I turn back here. Speak again, Sean. Ah, there he is.
1, 2, 3,
there
4.
he is. Well, this is the benefit of a live show. You get to see all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff. One day we should keep Dennis in here. That is a behind-the-scenes thing unto its own. Watching Dennis after his radio show. His set is right over there. Eating, sometimes falling asleep.
Sleeping.
And we have to
he
go.
Could probably sleep through the show. It would be interesting to see if he could sleep all the way through Timeless.
Well, God bless him. I mean, the guy, he is up so late. I'll get a text from him at like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Awake that late. But if you really want to see behind the scenes stuff, you should watch Dennis and Julie, which is every Sunday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, and then Timeless with Julie Hartman Live is Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at that same time. 1-800, see, I'm going to try this. Nope, it's not 1-800. 1-844-861-5537. Not even looking at the screen for that, I promise you. 1-844-861-5537. I've memorized it. That's how much I want you to call in. We're going to talk about a lot of different subjects today. If you don't want to call in, you can use the chat. I actually have my computer right here next to me, so I can very easily see the chat. I can already see that someone has written, hello, everyone. Lovely. And someone just wrote that the turquoise looks very pretty. Thank you very much for that. Tessa Jane, showing you how up to date I am with the chat. This could get a little dangerous. I'm so interested in seeing what people are saying that I may be looking over a few too many times.
I am so glad I didn't wear turquoise today. Can you imagine?
I don't really notice anytime you wear any color. I never notice that with guys. No offense.
I don't think I own anything turquoise.
That wouldn't shock me. This is, I think, the only thing I own that's turquoise. But as background, here are the main subjects that we're going to discuss today. As you guys know, I like throwing that out at the beginning in case you want to time in your call-in or your chat contributions, depending on what most interests you. But first, we're going to be talking about a little, just for a short period of time. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but the whole Don Lemon, Elon Musk interview, which Sean brought up on the show probably about a week ago, and it happened yesterday. Again, I really don't care to spend very much time on it. Nothing in it was very surprising. We knew where Don Lemon was coming from. We knew where Elon Musk was coming from, but there's one video in particular about the legacies of slavery that we really, really ought to discuss because it just comes up over and over again, and I want to talk about it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we'll be discussing immigration. We know what a big issue it is. Don Lemon and Elon Musk talked about that too in the interview yesterday. But I've done some digging on some greater parts of the immigration crisis that we are not very aware of. And that is how much our taxpayer money is being funded to NGOs and UN-based, if you will, programs which facilitate global migration through handing out maps, prepaid debit cards for people who are migrating from Central and South America into the United States. So that's kind of bulk number 2 of the show. And then number 3, we're going to be discussing what we wanted to talk about yesterday, but we got off a little bit discussing Haiti. And that is the amazingness of the human body. As you know, I love talking about non-political, non-newsy, what I call timeless life subjects on the show, just as much as I like discussing politics and news. And so please do stick around for that final segment. I think you'll be amazed as to all of the different functions that our body has that are really amazing. It is the most efficient and fantastic machine ever invented, and all of us, if you're listening at least, have it. But first, as you know, I enjoy beginning the show with some random discussions, random topics. And the first one is that I would like to, for a few moments, follow up on something that Sean and I discussed yesterday with regard to Haiti. If you haven't seen yesterday's episode, please do check it out. We talked about what is going on right now in Haiti. The country has been overrun by multiple terrible gangs and has descended into the worst, most barbaric levels of violence you could imagine. It's headed by this gang leader, Barbecue. And then we also discussed, why are you laughing at that, Sean? What? You always laugh when I say that.
You know my sense of humor. Do you have any idea how hard it was yesterday not to crack any jokes about a gang leader named Barbecue while cannibalism is going on? It was such a serious topic that I held all my jokes.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
And I will continue to hold my jokes.
You demonstrated.
But it's hard not to chuckle when you hear his name's Barbecue.
You know what? I'm not even going to continue to dignify it with a response. I'm so sorry, everyone, for that man. Misinformation. So anyway, we were talking about what's going on in Haiti. And then we were just, oh my God, he's continuing to laugh. Stop. These are the moments when I wonder why I introduced him on the live show. Okay, we're done.
It's like an Austin Powers villain.
I'm happy for you.
Barbecue.
I'm glad you find it to be so funny. Well, did you hear also the whole thing that it was named, he's named that because his mother, like, barbecued a lot, or she ran a chicken shop or something. There was some bizarre story with regard to why they call him that, to totally distract from the fact that his nickname is Barbecue because he, for lack of a more graceful way of saying it.
That is interesting.
Yes, it is. Anyway, okay, so we were talking about what's going on in Haiti, talking about also the severe incompetence, shall we say, of the Clinton Foundation in the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake and hurricane, raising all of this money to try to help the country. And then it went to these industrial projects that didn't really go anywhere. A lot of people, including especially Haitians, said the money that did not go to rubble cleanup, did not go overwhelmingly to food and basic on the ground needs that Haitians needed. And so I asked this question, which utterly fascinates me, about selective outrage. Because right now we have a terrible, destitute situation of violence, indeed, by many reports, cannibalism going on in Haiti. But what we are seeing is that among many members of the American population, not all, but many, overwhelmingly woke people and the media, a lot of our national attention is being focused on what's going on in Gaza. At the San Francisco airport the other day, they staged this sit-in at the airport to protest the alleged genocide going on in Gaza. And so it just interests me to see where our collective national outrage is being funneled towards. And as I said yesterday, look, obviously, we're going to focus on countries that, whether this is said nicely or not, have more of a tie to kind of geopolitics. And with respect to Haiti, Haiti does not have an overwhelming tie to geopolitics. It doesn't have a huge sway internationally in the same way Israel does, or the same way Russia does, or the same way China does. So understandably, we're going to focus more of our attention on those countries. But if you really think about it, I mean, our fingerprints are certainly more so on the devastation in Haiti than they are on the devastation in Gaza. What's going on in Gaza is primarily, in the territory of not Israel's problem, but essentially Israel is the one waging the war in Gaza. So if there's attention that's being given to that with regard to American involvement, what I'm trying to say is that there's far more American involvement that created the destitute situation in Haiti by our incompetence and mismanagement in the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake and hurricane than there is with regard to what's going on in Gaza. Yes, we're aiding Israel, but you understand my point, that there's more of a direct tie in Haiti than in Gaza. So again, I ask this question, so why is there more attention being funneled to Gaza and not an equal amount given to Haiti, especially when there's more American fingerprints on the devastation in Haiti? And yes, do you want to come in and not laugh about barbecue? I know it's making you look bad.
You did that. I was not going to.
For the record, okay. I know but you're going to get slammed for this. Obviously, you're not laughing at people's, torture and murder. Of course
Not
not. I
at
just want to
all.
make that clear
Not
for
at
you.
all. I just, I'm a goofball.
He's a goofball.
I just imagine people, having to answer, yes, barbecue.
Yes, yes.
Right away, barbecue.
Right.
Okay. You made this point eloquently yesterday, and I know that you feel like you can make it more eloquently, and you were talking about selective outrage and where we focus and why we don't care about Haiti, where we were clearly involved, and we were less involved in the tragedy in Gaza, but there's more outrage. And I was thinking, because I rewatched the episode last night, just because quality check, whatever, and I realized there's another element to it. In addition to race, it's what the left deems important.
Oh, of course.
That's
Absolutely.
where the focus goes. It's so it's an added element to the outrage.
Right. Well,
they decided that call it, but it's almost reverse with the Haiti situation. They don't want to pay attention to it, but it's clearly colonial, if you will. It's white doing to black.
Right.
It's all the things you're talking about, but it doesn't fit the left narrative, so we pay no attention to it.
Yes, and this is what Sean and I literally live were talking about figuring out yesterday, where I asked this question about the selective outrage. At the very least, there should be equal outrage and equal concern with Haiti as with Gaza. But the answer that we discussed yesterday is that people generally, not everyone, but I'm talking about many woke people, the media, etc., they tend to really care when it can be overtly spun or proven that it is a quote unquote white person or white country harming a quote unquote non-white person or non-white country. And I said we see this here in the United States with crime. 97% of black homicide victims are killed by other black people. But we don't care about that, right? There is black on black crime constantly in the streets. You hear in Chicago recently, an 8-year-old was slain in the streets by a black shooter. Crickets. Doesn't make national headlines. But then when it is a white person killing a black person, racism, headline, etc. And that was always very morally upsetting to me, because it's like, well, do those black lives not matter because they were killed by other black people? Does your black life only matter if you're killed by a white person? All black lives matter. All lives matter, regardless of who is the perpetrator. But we also see this on a global scale, where it's not just that we're focused on a white person killing or harming a non-white person domestically. Again, we see this internationally. And that's why so much, in my view, so much of the outrage is being funneled towards Gaza when there should be a equal amount of outrage and concern with Haiti, because it's very easy to go white country, Israel, even though, as I said yesterday, that's ridiculous because Israel is half non-white. But it's very easy to go white country, Israel, harming non-white country or people, Gaza. We see this all the time, all around the world. We don't care that the Chinese are massacring the Uyghur Muslims. And by the way, speaking of American funding, we are one of China's biggest trading partners. We, let China basically do whatever they want here in the United States. There's a lot of culpability we have with, of course, we're not culpable for the Chinese Communist Party massacring Uyghurs, but we are culpable. If the argument is we give money to Israel and Israel in turn funds a genocide against those in Gaza, then the same argument should be used with China, but we don't use that argument, right? We also don't care, for instance, as Sean very astutely observed yesterday, we don't care that the items that we use all around us are made by black slave labor overwhelmingly in Africa. Lithium in our electric-powered vehicles, lithium and cobalt and copper in our iPhones and in the computers that we have. We don't care about that. Even though it is a white country or white people harming non-white people, there isn't a direct tie, an overt tie that can be immediately made apparent and spun for political purposes.
Yeah, and it's not just black people. We specifically talked about the Congo, where the people that are actually mining and being paid are doing well compared to the poverty in the Congo. That's how crazy it is. Like the people that have the jobs that are slave laboring for the minerals, there's a class of people that don't have work that are even worse off than the people that are being slave labored to pull the magnesium or the cobalt or and it's not just blacks and black lives. It's also in Indonesia and
Totally.
and other countries. So it's important to say that.
It absolutely is. But this is, this is what's interesting about the moment that we live in now. I believe that there is racism. First of all, I've never met a conservative who doesn't believe there is racism. Racism is as, true as it has always been true in the human existence because human beings are inherently not good. But here in the United States, I really do believe that there is racism. And this is where it is. It's that we don't care about Black lives, or to your point, Asian, a lot of our clothes are made and manufactured using slave labor in China and Indonesia, et cetera. We don't care, right? When it's those far away non-white people. And so when people talk all the time about systemic racism or racism, I actually don't disagree with what they are saying. I disagree with what they're pointing to. They're saying microaggressions is systemic racism, or, voter ID laws is systemic racism. That's not the racism or the systemic racism that we should be identifying. It's something like this, where we collectively in the United States, the media, the woke apparatus, doesn't give a damn about what's going on in Haiti because it's non-white people hurting non-white people. But they care much more about what's going on in Israel, Gaza, because it can be very easily spun to their political benefit. That's racist.
If you wanted the white-hot, misguided spotlight of the left to be focused on Haiti, it would have had to be the Trump Foundation that did what the Clinton Foundation did. Then they'd be all over it. Mm-hmm. Imagine if Trump had done what the Clintons had done. You wouldn't hear the end of it.
Yeah, well, welcome to America right now. Okay, so that was number one, just to follow up on yesterday, because when we have these really important insights, and I believe this explains so much of what we talk about and don't talk about in our national discourse. I really want to take the time to cement that, to restate it. So that's the quick first random thing. The next two are super fast. Yesterday, the whole bloodbath thing about Donald Trump, that he said that he's going to promise a bloodbath if he doesn't win. It was ridiculous because he was talking about electric vehicles and China dominating the market. So, what's funny? There was a headline in Breitbart that there is this Chinese auto manufacturer who literally used the term bloodbath to describe exactly what Trump was talking about. And here's what he said. Here's the direct quote. "This year also marks the beginning of a fierce competition that may end in a bloodbath, or as I prefer to call it, the brutal knockout round among Chinese automakers. Our guts, grit, and perseverance, I firmly believe, will lead us to victory," Xiaoping said. Yep. But of course, that will get no mainstream media attention. And then finally, yesterday we were talking a little bit about TikTok and the recent bill that was passed in the U.S. House that orders ByteDance to divest, if you will, from U.S. assets within 6 months. That hasn't gone to the Senate. Frankly, I don't think the bill's going to go anywhere, but we were talking about how I believe both sides' support and opposition to this is very legitimate. On the one hand, we want to stop China from spying on us and from undermining us, inculcating confusion, spreading fake news. It's one of the main mechanisms that China uses to subvert and undermine the United States. But on the other hand, totally understand that you don't want Congress picking and choosing, what social media you can and can't use. But I did discover something yesterday that I think is worthy of your consideration. I'm not even saying it to support one side or the other. I'm kind of neutral on this, at least right now. I'm just trying to learn more, but this is very interesting. The United States has certain laws which do restrict foreign ownership of broadcast stations. So specifically in one of our telecommunications acts, we have a statute which limits foreign investors to only having 20% direct ownership of companies which get broadcasting licenses. If you get a broadcasting license, you essentially have permission to use radio frequency in a certain part of, the geography of the United States. Here at the Salem Media Group, we have broadcasting licenses to go on the airwaves to many millions of people. And so we do limit foreign investment in broadcasting, understandably so. We don't want a big adversary or a big power coming in and basically controlling a lot of broadcasting. So it's just many people are using that as a similar argument for TikTok, which I think you ought to know.
Yeah, so it's interesting that percentage doesn't apply to real estate or
Good
internet.
point. Very good point. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Don Lemon and Elon Musk. I'm not even saying it to be unkind. Some people call him Don Lemon, like as a kind of snide remark. It's so irresistible, the rhyme. And then with Elon too. Anyway, gonna just keep it classy, keep it straightforward, call him Don Lemon. So yesterday, Don Lemon and Elon Musk's interview was released. It was so predictable, I think. I didn't even watch all of it. They were just going back and forth. Don Lemon was the liberal. Elon Musk was the conservative. It was just like, okay, no offense to either one of them, but tell me something I don't know. But what I did see, a friend actually sent this video to me, is Don Lemon on TikTok posting about what he says is Elon Musk's suppression of him on X. Now, what happened is that Don Lemon got a deal with X to have a show on X, and then Elon Musk went back on that, essentially fired him. And so Don Lemon has come out and used that to say that Elon Musk is suppressing free speech. He's not. He just fired you, which he has a right to do because he owns the company. But here's just a quick video of what Don Lemon posted on TikTok reacting to that.
Go ahead. Let's light this candle, huh? I mean, sure, I'll lose everything, but then I'll have nothing to lose.
Okay, both liberals and conservatives do this. Everybody nowadays does this. I just look at that and I'm like, is this who we are? You know, like, really? This is how we're reacting to things. Sean is cracking up right now as much as he was cracking up about barbecue, which is good to know that you can laugh so heartily at other things too.
That is so creepy. What was that video?
It does. You know what?
He's maniacally eating popcorn with his poor dog. I can't. Oh,
look,
God,
it's just classless. The only point I want to make about that, and truly both sides do it. American people in general do this. It's like, imagine if Walter Cronkite lost a deal. You know, do you think Walter Cronkite, obviously TikTok didn't exist then, but would do something that's just so stupid and memey and trying to troll? It's just like, come on. Okay. Anyway, another thing I wanted to highlight in the interview. See, here's the issue that I have with Don Lemon. He acts like he's a journalist when he asks questions, but really it's not objective and it's not curious. It's judgmental. It's all suffused with judgment and trying to get you. Listen to what he asked Elon Musk about his medication.
So you do a lot of it at night, like late at night. So when you're doing this, are you sober when you do it?
Almost
Are
always,
you
yes.
under the influence of anything?
No, I don't drink. I don't really. No.
So you got no drink, no smoke, no nothing. I mean, you smoke pot with Rogan.
I had one puff.
Yeah.
I think anyone who smokes pot can tell I don't know how to smoke pot.
But you've admitted that you have a ketamine prescription.
Yeah.
What's that for?
Well, I mean, it's pretty private to ask somebody about a medical prescription, you know.
Good for Elon.
But I think it's something I'd say, like, there are times when I have sort of I don't know, at like a negative chemical state in my brain, like depression, I guess, you know.
But do you see how prosecutorial that is? Like, Don Lemon is acting like he's just this journalist. He's like, oh no, oh, so you don't drink, you don't smoke, but you did smoke pot on Rogan. You know, it's just so gotcha, and that's not, you know, it's just not the right way to ask about someone's medication.
I wish that during the interview he was sitting there maniacally eating popcorn while talking to Elon. That is the strangest thing.
I know. It's so weird.
Yeah.
So oh my gosh, this is like your Nancy Pelosi laugh thing. What's your Nancy Pelosi laugh? Okay. Pause. Like, I need an off button. Okay, so it just shows you, like, it was just classless at many times. But there is one interaction that I think is really worthy of highlighting, and it's when Don Lemon tries to race bait Elon Musk. Let's watch here, just a few moments.
We are all descended from slaves.
Yeah.
Well, all of us.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
Right.
So the but what future do we want?
But
is this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual?
I agree with you with that. That's the ideal. But what the evidence shows is that that's not what's actually in practice.
I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
Okay, pause. So essentially, Don Lemon was asking about, slavery, the legacies of slavery, and Elon Musk made this fantastic point that we are all descendants of slaves. All of us. It's just a matter of how recently. And so it's just interesting, too, the way that Don Lemon countered that, where Elon Musk said, we should all judge people based on who they are as individuals. And then Don Lemon said, that's the ideal, but that's not what's really happening. Don Lemon is right that that's not what's really happening. We are not judging people based on who they are as individuals. But that's because of the left. That's because of race baiters. This is the thing that's crazy, because he's saying the truth, but his idea of what he's referring to is so different. He is saying that basically, Don Lemon is saying that we don't treat people equally because, KKK style racism and anti-Black hatred is alive and well. That is not true, overwhelmingly. What is true is that we are not treating people, equally and according to their status as individuals. We are judging people on the color of their skin because of the left. And the proof is in the pudding. I talk about this all the time. Intersectionality. A ninth grade listener of the show sent me his curriculum, and we put up slides of it. You can watch the episode. And they are encouraging students to judge people based on their immutable characteristics. Beyonce, they have this chart that the things that made Beyonce privileged is that she is, rich and heterosexual. And the things that make her oppressed is that she is Black and she is a woman. It is not judging people. It is judging people on their race. It is not judging people according to their individual merit, but not for the reasons that Don Lemon is saying.
Not only that,
yeah.
Don Lemon, by his own standards, he checks two boxes, right, in the marginalized, underrepresented groups as Black and gay. And I wonder what his net worth is. He's doing quite well in this systematically racist country, is he not?
You will see in the next video, and it is just so funny. He says to Elon Musk, he's like, well, a lot of people couldn't take advantage of what you've taken advantage of simply because of the color of their skin. And I'm like, you're sitting across from Elon on X. Like, you are Don Lemon. You have, millions exactly of dollars in contracts. You were on CNN for years. I mean, it's amazing, the lack of awareness. But as I said earlier with regard to the whole Haiti conversation, I actually agree very plainly with what Don Lemon is saying. There is racism. There is judging people unequally. But it's not the KKK style anti-Black hatred that we once terribly had in this country. It is new racism 2.0, which is promulgated by the left. And I mentioned, intersectionality, judging people based on their immutable characteristics. We, obviously we talk a lot about all Black dormitories, places like Columbia University, which have all Black graduations. Even this whole idea of merit, merit is now being deemed a white supremacist concept, according to, among others, Antelope Valley College here in California. And so
I went there. I attended Antelope Valley College.
I thought you went to Chico State.
Well, it's a junior college. I promise you.
I believe you.
Whew. The stories I could tell.
I'm interested to hear, but we may need to do a little off-the-air stories so I can see if they're vetted and appropriate for on the air.
Man, I'm trying to figure out why Don Lemon's so bitter. When life gives you lemons, Don.
Well, you know why he's so
lemonade.
bitter. You know why he's bitter.
Because he makes money off of it.
Yeah. So let's watch the rest of this clip. It's pretty short, but here's what I want you to pay attention to. Because this is a funny one, okay? So when Don Lemon is talking about the legacies of slavery, Elon kind of pushes him on it and says, well, how have I, benefited from my skin color? And Don Lemon tries to talk about slavery. Listen to the evidence that Don Lemon cites about the continuing legacy of slavery. You will notice he cannot name anything specific.
Hold on, let me get my popcorn.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came here as slaves.
For me to come here.
And there is a legacy of slavery that still continues on. There's a legacy of racism that still continues on in this country. That's undeniable.
Well, if
that interaction,
talking about it nonstop, it will never go away.
Yes, he's right. If we talk about it nonstop, it'll never go away. But again, listen to what he said. This is what the three things Don Lemon said when Elon Musk asked him, well, what advantages do I have right now in the United States because of the color of my skin? Don Lemon said, you have an ease in society, which many people of color don't. Is that specific? What does that mean? And by the way, if he wants to provide, I will totally listen to that, but what does that mean? You have an ease in society. Okay. Not specific. The second one, you come into this country voluntarily. Okay. Slaves did not come into this country voluntarily, but we're not slaves. Like, they speak about white people and black people as if, like, Don Lemon, I as a black person did not come into this country voluntarily. Don Lemon, you're in 2024. You were born in this. Like, I hate talking about people 200 years ago like they're people today. And Don Lemon saying to Elon Musk, you came into this country voluntarily, when he's referring to Elon Musk's ancestors. It's just like, do you ever notice that? Like, people, like, they're using those arguments as if the individuals are the ancestors today. And it's just wrong. And Elon Musk, go ahead.
I just pictured Don Lemon in his posh New York flat, throwing popcorn in his mouth with his poofy dog, telling someone who experienced slavery how bad he's got it.
Totally, exactly. And according to the Global Slavery Index, there are 50 million slaves still today. But Don Lemon is going to sit on, X and talk about the ever-continuing legacies of slavery in the United States today. And then the third thing he said was, the legacy of slavery and racism continues to this day. This is undeniable. If it's so undeniable, why can't you provide a specific example of the legacy of slavery? As I have said, I totally agree with him that there's racism. And I also, I do believe in this idea of generational hardship. And of course, it took time for people who were descendants of slaves to, build a foundation of lives that people who were not the descendants of slaves, had. I totally agree with that too. But he's saying today in 2024 that the legacies of slavery are alive and well when he cannot provide examples. Racism is alive and well, but the legacies of slavery are, at least to me, not. But on this point of racism, what I wish Elon Musk did, and I thought Elon Musk was great in that interview. He was unruffled. He, didn't get angry. I think he was great. But what I wish Elon Musk had said to Don Lemon after this is, okay, well, if you want to talk about racism and the legacies of certain things, why don't we look at what the left is doing to Black America right now? In Oregon, they say that finding one right answer in math is white supremacy. You think that harms, overwhelmingly white kids who are in private schools, Who does that harm, right? I mean, it harms white kids too, but I'm saying it harms low-income, overwhelmingly minority students who are showing up to class and being taught that doing basic math is white supremacy. That's racism to me. How about, as I said, calling merit and virtues like punctuality white supremacist white virtues? That's according to the Smithsonian Institute. They have this whole list of white virtues. You don't think that's holding Black people, Black kids back by saying that objective virtues are somehow white and you should avoid them because they're white? And we see the proof in Baltimore. Over 90% of minority students can't read at grade levels. Here in California, 75% of Black boys in our state cannot read at grade levels. But Don Lemon's talking about the legacies of slavery. He's not talking about the real actions right now of the left, which are indeed discriminating against and hurting the Black community. How about teachers' unions? Teachers' unions, it is nearly impossible to fire a teacher. And what happens is if a teacher is incompetent, he or she goes to what's called a rubber room, which is essentially a timeout, and they file paperwork. They're taken out of their classroom if they do something egregious, but it's very hard for them to get fired because they're protected by the unions. And they go to these things called rubber rooms where they do paperwork for 2 years, or they do kind of administrative duties where they're not teaching. And then after 2 to 3 years, Tom Sowell outlines this beautifully in his book, Charter Schools and Their Enemies. These teachers are put back into the public school system, but where do they overwhelmingly go to? Low income, mostly minority schools, because people think, oh, those schools aren't going to succeed anyway. We're going to give them the rubber room, incompetent teachers. There are just many, many examples of the very present racism against Black people in the United States by the left. But again, it's just Don Lemon doesn't care. He's going to talk about slavery all day.
I will give Senor Limon some credit. He knows how to launch a show.
Yes, he does. I've gotten so skeptical of these feuds. I mean, to pause for a moment and talk about my dear Real Housewives. Whenever there is a new season of The Real Housewives, a month before or 2 weeks before, there's an announcement that one of the couples got divorced. There was infidelity. Like, there's always this bombshell announcement right before the new season. So, yeah, you never know with these feuds what's really going on behind the scenes. Let's now move on to immigration, though quickly I will check the chat. Oh gosh, look, Sean, somebody else went to Antelope College. You see that?
Oh, I feel sorry
a
for you
classmate.
too.
Yeah, I went to Antelope Valley College too. Yeah, AP Unfiltered says, can't forget that being on time is considered by them as a value of whiteness. Yes, another one is delaying having fun until you work apparently is a white value. It's unbelievably racist. Someone wrote, I know, right? I feel like that's a good endorsement.
Oh, that's what IKR means?
You didn't know that?
I don't know anything. Why do you think I'm called misinformation? Look at it.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Shanzi, you make references to things like Monty Python, and I have no clue what you're talking about. But I'm learning. Let's talk quickly about MyPillow. Take a little break before we talk about immigration. I use a lot of MyPillow products. I sleep on a MyPillow. I use the Giza Dream bed sheets. I use my towels, and I use my slippers. And you can get these products at a discount too if you use the promo code Hartman with one N and no E, or call 1-800-566-6745. I mentioned the famous Giza Dream bed sheets. You can get them for their lowest prices in history. Queen size for $59.98, king size $69.98. You can also get 60% off of the original My Slippers. I love the My Slippers. So comfortable, so durable. I wear them to the grocery store. Just go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. Again, get the famous Giza Dream bed sheets, queen size for $59.98, king size for just $69.98. 60% off too of the My Slippers. 1-800-566-6745 or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Hartman. To those of us joining in on the live chat right now, welcome. We've been talking about we're about to talk about immigration, but we were talking about the Don Lemon and Elon Musk interview. You can call into the show if you'd like to chat, challenge, comment, question, really whatever. 1-844-861-5537, 1-844-861-5537, and you can use the chat. I'm monitoring the chat right now. So far, it looks pretty classy. And I welcome all your comments.
I'm not the only one that didn't know what IKR meant. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, someone thought it meant I care. How does that IKR? Oh, okay. Well, we're learning new things. I taught Sean on this show what TLDR means, which means, Sean.
Too long. Don't read.
That's right. Good. We're just gonna start quizzing you on these things. Why that? Why are you doing that? Because you're acting like Don Lemon's dog.
I felt like, please. Oh, I'd run away. I would run away. Can you imagine?
I would run
him just
away.
petting me on the head while he's eating popcorn.
So remember when I had that guy on my show? Of course, I'm forgetting his name now, but he's the dog training specialist. What's his name?
Warren Eckstein.
Warren Epstein. He's so cool.
Eck.
That's what I said. You just heard it wrong.
Eckstein.
You just heard it wrong. Just like Claudia and Gay said, I didn't plagiarize. I duplicated material. I didn't misspeak. You heard it wrong. Anyway, I had Warren Eckstein. That's what I said, yes, on the show, and he's a dog trainer, and he said something so interesting. I said, do dogs have personalities? Like, do animals in general have personalities? And he said, yes, and they tend to take on the personality of their owner. So if the owner's really manic and frantic, you'll see a very manic and frantic dog. If the owner's very loving and magnanimous, the dog will be similar. So that Don Lemon dog, I'm sorry, he must be so bitter. He must be the most bitter, supercilious dog. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's dog must be a genius.
Look at him just stroking it like an evil, Dr. Evil with the cat. That was
my
James
dog
Bond.
Would be a nerd. Your dog would be laughing all the time.
My dog
Rick's
is awesome.
dog would be surfing.
Yeah, that's true.
Dennis
that's why all those little chihuahuas are always nipping at people, because their owners are insane.
Yeah. It's so true.
Lap chihuahuas.
Sounds like Nancy Pelosi.
I'm just surprised Don Lemon owns a white dog. Maybe that makes him feel privileged.
Oh, that is so funny. I love that. Someone's writing, I would call, but I'm at work. Leave your work, dude. Go to the bathroom. No, I'm kidding. I totally understand. Not offended at all. All right, let's talk about immigration. Well, speaking of the Don Lemon, Elon Musk interview, there was a hilarious exchange between them about immigration, where Don Lemon was trying to have a gotcha moment with Elon Musk, and then pay attention to Don Lemon's face at the end. It is priceless when Elon Musk is explaining what's going on with immigration.
Can we talk about the Great Replacement Theory now? Some of the things that you post, the Great Replacement Theory, you claim that Democrats, President Biden's immigration plan to open up the border, you said that the president is getting, and Democrats are doing it to get more votes. But undocumented immigrants cannot vote in federal elections, so how is that possible?
When the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats.
Look at Don Lemon's face.
So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So.
Do you see that face? Sean, please save this video and clip it. And then if someone gets facts explained, we need to just put up that face as indicative of what really happens when you get facts explained. Oh God, it is priceless.
Are they sitting in a parking lot?
Yeah, where are they? It's so true.
Very weird. And the other thing, a story came out this afternoon. A judge in Illinois has ruled that illegal immigrants have gun rights protected by the Second Amendment. That just came out today.
I am not surprised. I'm definitely not surprised. You know, another thing that came out today was the Supreme Court ruling that Texas can, in fact, enforce a new state law, which they passed in the wake of President Biden's Department of Homeland Security border incompetence. So the what did I say? The Cream Court. Oh no. That's got to go in the archives. We need to do a blooper reel. That's a Joe Biden moment. The Cream Court ordered today that we're using vanilla cream in our donuts. Okay. The Supreme Court ordered that Texas can use their state law to enforce the border. This was blocked. It was challenged by the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice said, no, Texas can't pass a new law with regard to border control. We're the federal government. We control the border, yada, yada, yada. Supreme Court sided with Texas today. So let's go back to this, though, because we know that the immigration crisis is really bad, but there's another element of this that really shows how intentional a lot of this migration is. Taxpayer funded intentional. But first, let's consider some facts, okay? The Department of Housing and Urban Development released a report recently which showed that from 2022 to 2023, veteran homelessness increased by 7.2%. That means that in any given year, there are 35,000 homeless veterans at any given night, okay? So it increased by 7.2% from 2022 to 2023. Also, according to the U.S. Department of Urban Planning and Development, from 2022 to 2023, same year, homelessness generally increased by 12% to reach 653,000 Americans, over half a billion. Over half a million. People in the United States are homeless. That's amazing. So we see veteran homelessness increased, and homelessness in general increased. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants are getting hotel rooms in places like New York City, as veteran homelessness and in general homelessness has increased. Let's look at another fact. There was a report also recently released by the U.S. government which found that food insecurity increased from 10.2% in 2021 to 12.8% in 2022. That's a increase of about 10 million more people, including 4 million children who count as having food insecurity. Meanwhile, let's look at this. Immigrants in New York City are getting prepaid debit cards for food. Okay? So we have American citizens who are homeless, but illegal immigrants are getting hotels. We have American citizens who are suffering from food insecurity, and illegal immigrants are getting prepaid debit cards on which to buy food. We also saw, of course, that when Laken Riley was murdered by an illegal immigrant, the President of the United States, in an interview with MSNBC, did not apologize for the policies of his Department of Homeland Security, which made that murder by that illegal immigrant possible, but instead he apologized to the murderer, an illegal immigrant, for calling him an illegal immigrant. So in many different ways, it is very clear that the President of the United States cares, and his administration cares more for non-citizens than citizens, okay? And what we are seeing now, very starkly, is that this is being made to happen. This immigration crisis is engineered, it is supported, and it was planned out. A, by opening the borders, but B, by certain programs which make migrants stay here, the hotels and the prepaid debit cards. And it started really from the moment that President Biden took office. One of his first executive orders was that he reversed Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. That was the policy where if immigrants are seeking asylum, they remain in Mexico, on the Mexico side of the border, pending their asylum hearing date. Because the logic goes, if they're brought into the United States pending their asylum hearing, they're going to just enter and go into the United States and not show up for their asylum hearing, which happens now. But let's just watch a quick video of President Biden with a mask alone in the Oval Office signing that executive order repealing the Remain in Mexico policy.
Remove the stain on our reputation.
So yes, he was removing the stain on our reputation, he said. He also, we forget, halted construction on the border wall. He also, for 100 days, put a pause on deportations. And as we saw recently when the U.S. House of Representatives impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of Homeland Security under President Biden, there was a September 2021 enforcement guideline that was penned by Alejandro Mayorkas, and he specifically instructed border patrols to not remove illegal immigrants and basically send them back across the border because he said that a illegal presence in the United States is not sufficient grounds for removal. This is being made to happen. This is engineered. No wonder that in 2017, under former President Donald Trump, his first year in office, there were about 300,000, a little over that actually, like 330,000 immigrants who came across the border into the United States in 2017. Then in fiscal year 2023, that number jumped to 2.4 million crossing the border and coming into the United States. May I say again, this is being made to happen. And we are seeing even more evidence of this, where recently we know that Senator Bill Hagerty proposed this amendment in the Senate, which would ban illegal immigrants from being counted in the U.S. Census. Because as Elon Musk was saying to Don Lemon, who was so confused, how did this happen? As Elon Musk was explaining, if you're counted in the census, then that is how the Electoral College and the U.S. House of Representatives determines how many representatives each state gets. It's depending on the population of those states. So we saw that Senator Hagerty proposed an amendment which would ban illegal immigrants from being counted in the census, and not a single Democratic senator supported that amendment. Why is that? We know why that is. Because they want them counted. So they want more votes. And again, this is part of the whole thing with sanctuary cities, and this is why liberal states like California and New York package themselves as sanctuary states and having sanctuary cities, because they know a lot of immigrants will go there, and then they can be counted in the census, and those blue states get more representatives in the House and in the Electoral College.
Something you just said. You said Democratic senators. Democrat senators. I hate that. They've like hijacked the word. We're all Democratic. We're supposed to be. They're Democrats. Democrat senators. Also, it's just a subversion of language. It was a very brilliant choice to call themselves a Democrat. Look at the chat. Look at the chat. I told you this yesterday. How's it pronounced?
What? Don Limes? I'm seeing Don Limes.
No, it's not Haggerty. It's
Hagerty.
Haggerty.
Isn't
Haggerty.
Haggerty.
Call him a hag.
Cream Court.
Cream Court. It sounds delicious.
I know. If only our Supreme Court were a cream court. No, but this is just beyond gross. I mean, as I have said many times, I don't want to hear the Democratic Party ever lecture to me about saving democracy and saving the soul of the nation again. I never want to hear it.
The Democrat Party.
Oh, thank you. That's what you said.
Not the Democratic Party.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. Just a literal 5-second note on this. I hear you, but it sounds naked to call it the Democrat Party. It sounds like grammatically naked, if you understand what I'm saying. I mean, it is a proper term, but it's Democrats and the Democratic Party. It's not the Democrat Party, is it?
It is. We are Democratic. They are Democrats.
Well, I hear what you're saying, because I don't like calling it the Democratic Party, because it is not democratic.
It's brilliant marketing.
But actually, I've actually done a show on this, or at the very least I've talked about it on Dennis and Julie. The distinctions between Republican Party and Democrat or Democratic Party are revelatory, because Republicans are trying to preserve the republic. And a republic is different than a democracy. So it actually is sort of apt. I mean, even though the Democrats are not democratic, they are trying to move away from the boundaries and guardrails established in our republic. Like, for many have tried to get rid of the Electoral College, for instance, which is a hallmark of a republic as opposed to a democracy. But now what we're seeing is that they know they can't get rid of the Electoral College, so they're just trying to stack the Electoral College with illegal immigrants. But anyway, we actually should talk about that more, the differences between republic and a democracy. But this is being made to happen And the more digging that one does on this issue, the more you realize just how much it is being made to happen. Where it's not just President Biden throwing open the border. It's not just him repealing the Remain in Mexico policy. It is not just sanctuary cities luring in illegal immigrants and rewarding them with hotels and prepaid debit cards to keep them there. It's not just the census stuff. U.S. taxpayer money is going towards NGOs and other organizations which are facilitating migrants on their journey from Central and South America into the United States. Conspiracy theory, right? No, it's not. It's really not. Okay, let's look here, okay? This is the UN Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. This is their logo. This was a meeting that was brought together in 2016 called the UN Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. By the way, interesting, they say regular migration. They want migration. Usually if the UN would get together, you might want to talk about how to mitigate migration, how to make the circumstances in individuals' countries hospitable for them to live there and survive there and not be subject to human rights abuses there, instead of facilitating their exit from those countries. So that's interesting that a stated goal, indeed in the logo, is regular migration. But anyway, in 2016, a bunch of UN member countries came together and for this meeting. And then in 2018, there was a vote in favor of what was agreed upon in that 2016 meeting, and 152 nations voted in favor of that agreement. The United States did not vote in favor of that agreement. And essentially what it did was allocate a lot of money, funding, time, resources, personnel to these UN entities and UN affiliated NGOs to facilitate global migration. Let's look at a picture of Central and South America. So what's happening is that a lot of people have to cross through what's called the Darien Gap. This is a very dense and dangerous jungle, which is between the borders of Colombia and Panama. And many people die on that journey because it is a very, as I said, unsafe, dense, and dangerous terrain to cross through. And so what many of these NGOs have done, and the UN organizations have done, is set up migration tents and maps and resources for people to traverse safely through that Darien Gap to get to Panama and to get to other parts of Central America so as to enter the United States. What other immigrants are doing is that they're flying into countries like Ecuador, which we see right there is just below and on the coast, below Colombia, that is. And Ecuador is one of those countries which does not require a visa to enter. So people from other parts of South America are flying to Ecuador, and actually from around the world too are flying to Ecuador, going up through Colombia, crossing with the help of the NGOs through the Darien Gap, and then getting sort of up and up to Mexico, and then crossing into the United States. So to give you some specifics of these NGOs and these organizations which are doing this, there's one that's called the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, and it is the UN's migration, basically, main entity. And by the way, this is confusing if you read a lot about it, because there are a lot of different NGOs, there are a lot of different entities. Like, it's very, I think, purposefully disorganized, and a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, but I'm just focusing on the main ones here. So one of the main ones is this IOM, the International Organization for Migration. They call migration, quote, a force for good in the world. So it is indeed a stated principle to facilitate migration instead of focusing the efforts on making those countries better so as not to have immigrants need to migrate. The director of the IOM is a lady named Amy Pope, and she is President Biden's senior advisor on migration. She also was a Homeland Security advisor to President Obama. And during President Biden's time in office, he has heavily increased funding to the IOM, U.S. taxpayer money funding to the IOM. So if we look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden, under President Trump, the U.S. gave about $500 million taxpayer dollars to the UN's International Organization for Migration. President Biden, in 2023 alone, gave $1.3 billion to the IOM. And one of the State Department entities which gave one of the biggest grants to the IOM during 2023, they said that they are doing this, quote, to fund processing individuals requesting refugee status and resettlement in the United States and arrange their movement. So the U.S. State Department is admitting that they are trying to process people here and have them resettle and arrange their movement here. This is just something that we should know. At the very least, we should understand that this is an objective of the U.S. government, and we should understand that our taxpayer money is being given to facilitate this global migration. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can say that we have a humanitarian obligation to do this, you can say that we have an obligation to help our people first, but it is something that everyone should know about. And it's a little shady that we don't know about it. So to give like a little bit more color to this, because there, all these entities, the UN organization, they use a lot of that money, the 1.3 billion, in cash and vouchers. That's what they call it, one of their line items. Multi-purpose cash assistance is another thing they say, where essentially they give prepaid debit cards to migrants through this UN migration agency to help them on their journey. So here's an example, and this is actually an archived post on Twitter where someone who was working for the IOM, this UN migration agency, was in Central America, and he took photos and posted on Twitter of how migrants are getting these prepaid debit cards. Again, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can say we have a humanitarian obligation, but I think we can all agree a lot of people don't know that this is happening. Here's another example of a Haitian migrant in Mexico who has a prepaid debit card. I mean, for a moment, when you look at that and you see how much these people are struggling, you see what they are fleeing. I mean, many of them are fleeing war-torn, poverty-stricken countries. They have destitute situations in their own countries. Many are just trying to get to America to have a better life. I have enormous sympathy for those individuals. Who wouldn't? I mean, of course, there are bad actors taking advantage of this, and we have to acknowledge that. But certainly there are many people who are so desperate. And wouldn't you do that? I know if I were a mother and I were being, overrun and abused by gangs and raped, and, I was living in poverty in my country, I would take advantage of all of this to come to the United States, of course. So when we talk about this, like, people are so, easy to jump. They're so quick to jump in and go, oh, if you're exposing this, you're xenophobic. It's not xenophobia. It's not hatred. It's just exposing what our taxpayer money is funding. Let's just look at another example. This is from the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. It's one of the biggest NGOs operating in Central and South America. And it's a US-funded NGO. It also gets UN funding, although it's not directly affiliated with the UN like the IOM is. And they have maps where they show people how to most efficiently get to the United States border. They have bus stops, they have warnings about terrain, they have indication where there are migrant camps where they can get water and food, etc. Just something you should know. And trust me, I could give many more examples of all of the different NGOs that receive our taxpayer funding that are facilitating this crisis and have gotten a big boost since President Biden took office. But I think that is pretty sufficient for understanding what is going on. Sean, what's your reaction to this?
Well, Alejo was just sharing an interesting tidbit with me. Alejandro Mayorkas was a board member of HIAS up until the moment he was appointed by Biden to Homeland Security.
Fascinating,
So
right?
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Hey, that's my line.
That's not your line.
Okay. You're right. I don't own it. Yes, but just a quick note, and then we'll move on to something really totally non-political and fun. But I was talking with someone who immigrated to this country legally recently, and one of the things he said to me, and I thought it was an excellent point, was, I feel penalized for doing this the right way. Like, and I hear this when I talk with a lot of legal immigrants, where they go, wait a minute, I could have just crossed in illegally. I don't have to pay taxes. Like, I can be the recipient of a lot of, programs. It doesn't mean that I know a lot of illegal immigrants here, for all of the resources they are getting, they are also living on the streets. They have terrible situations here. It's not to say that, illegal immigrants are being put up in a palace, but you take my point that a lot of people who have come to this country legally, it sends a message of, it offers bad incentives, that when they see that people can just come illegally and not have to pay taxes, why would you do things lawfully? It's not a good road to go down.
I want to live in the America that this is our biggest problem, and that we're not hemorrhaging money in our government into places we don't know about, wasting taxpayer money, and we had the funding to deal with this, because people that want to come here, the great majority of them, work hard and do the right thing. And this gets wasted because we have to spend our time looking like xenophobes just for talking about protecting the borders of this great nation, when people want to come here for obvious reasons that on a micro level make complete sense, and it's humanitarian and it's compassionate. And I wish our government were in order and we weren't wasting money all over the place so that we could afford things like this.
Right.
What a wonderful world it would be.
But here's the thing. We also have to take care of our own first. And that's why it was very important to me to put in those stats, about how veteran homelessness has increased by 7.2% from 2022 to 2023. Homelessness generally saw the biggest uptick since they started even keeping track of that data, 12% from 2022 to 2023. We have to take care of our own first. That's not xenophobic. That doesn't mean we don't have a profound amount of sympathy for people in other countries coming here in their destitute situation. But when we have Americans, and especially American veterans, who are on the street, and we are bypassing them to give money and shelter and aid to people who are not citizens of our own country, that is sick. Let's move on to some fun stuff in our last few moments.
He's got a cute dog. That's a cute dog.
Yes, that is a cute dog.
Pictures with dogs today.
I know. This is the dog show. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this human body discussion that I so want to have in our final minutes together. So on a recent episode of Timeless with Julie Hartman Live, I talked to you about this kind of realization I've had about what an immense miracle it is to even be on this earth. And I've done some more statistical digging on this. You're going to be amazed by this, okay? Sperm. Let's talk about sperm.
Huh?
Yep.
Say what?
We're talking about sperm. I love it.
We need the Don Lemon face right now.
No, he knows what I'm talking about there. I imagine myself meeting someone and someone says, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I talk about the likelihood of your being born with sperm and egg and meeting at the right place. What do you do for a living? That's what I do. No, but seriously, this is amazing. So sperm. The average man produces, Sean is cracking up. I'm thrilled that you are. 85 million sperm per day per testicle. Okay, that's just one day. So on the average day, Sean is wondering why we're doing this. Bear with me. I promise you, you're going to love it. You're going to be so amazed by this. You're like, how did I get here on this show with this girl? Wait.
I was just thinking Lance Armstrong only produces...
Okay. Oh, no.
42,500.
Pause. Pause button. So the average man, 85 million sperm per testicle. So that's 100
million. 85 million or 1,000?
85 million, Sean. 85 million per
That's
testicle. So the average man on a given day not when they're super old, but on a given day has 170 million sperm being produced. And I don't want to get into all of it, but there's also other sperm that you hold in your body for 72 days. Doesn't matter. I'm hitting pause on you because I know you're going to cut in and say something crude. Basically, there are millions and millions of sperm in a man on a given day. A woman in her prime mating decade, in her 20s, has
How many sperm does she produce?
Okay. She has 200,000 eggs. So let's just take an average man, an average woman who come together to make a child. Let's call it 100,000 eggs. Let's say she's 30. She has 100,000 eggs. And then let's discount all of the sperm, which a man already has, and just look at the amount that's produced per day, 170 million sperm. Those are the numbers that you're dealing with. That one sperm of the 170 million and that one egg of the 100,000 come together at that moment to make you. That is a statistical miracle. So much so.
I'm still confused. What is a woman?
Yeah, exactly. And well, they don't even call her an egg producing thing. What did they say again? An birthing person, an egg producing thing. Yes. Okay, but all jokes aside, I hope you can appreciate how amazing this is.
Yeah.
That is a statistical, like, crazy miracle. And so also I saw this thing about your ancestors. Let's pull up the graphic about that you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. And essentially what they figured out is that over the past 400 years, you had 4,000 ancestors that made you who they are. And this is where the miracle of your existence gets even more amazing, because it's not just that one sperm and one egg of your parents had to meet. All of their parents and all of their meetings and all of their sperms and their eggs had to meet to produce your ancestor, who in turn produced you. So if you really compound all of the factors, you will even come to realize how much more of a miracle it is that you're here. And so someone actually took the time to try to figure this out, mathematicians, scientists. I just looked it up. I couldn't even do the math. And what they have come up with, this is according to Mel Robbins, is that your likelihood of being born to your parents at this moment in time as you is 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion. Those are the chances that you got here. And so there's another doctor, Dr. Ali Benzair, and he has, he quotes like a Buddhist kind of version or view or analogy of the improbability of human existence. And essentially what they said is that imagine that a lifesaver, like, those circular buoys, one of those life-saving devices is cast into the ocean, that circular one. And imagine
a life preserver.
I think a life preserver is the big thing. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Life preserver, okay.
They're both
cream corn.
Lifesavers are little candies. They're delicious.
Yes, they are. But imagine one of those circular life preservers being thrown into the ocean, and then like anywhere in the ocean, and then imagine one turtle who swims up and pops its head in that circular life preserver. That is the probability that you would be born. Like
the turtle's the sperm?
No, the turtle's you. The turtle is you.
The preserver's the egg and the turtle's the sperm?
No, oh my gosh.
All I can think about is we could solve all the world's problems if we could somehow harness the energy of wasted sperm.
I really wonder. Oh my God. I actually wish I had a pause and a mute button, but sadly I don't. But okay, you get the point. Just an amazing thing that anywhere in the ocean, that one random turtle would at that exact moment come into the life preserver. That is the chance that you were born. And so let's look at the numbers of the lottery, right? So the likelihood of winning the lottery, any Powerball jackpot of any size, is 1 in 292 million. The probability of winning like the mega millions lottery is 1 in 302 million. And so when people are saying like, oh my God, Joe Biden's ability to form a full sentence without stumbling is just as crazy, statistically improbable as winning the lottery, we should stop using that term like winning the lottery. We should be like, it's as statistically improbable as being born. That is the greater, we've all won the lottery literally like billions of times over by even being here. And I'll give you another cool thing. There are only 117 billion human beings to have ever lived on Earth, including us right now, the 8 billion who are alive. And when you put that number against all of the different combinations of human beings who could have been alive, you realize that we are a tiny, tiny class in a vast ocean of probable people. Here's just a graphic of like a billion dots. Imagine that graphic times 1,000, and we are one of those dots as far as our probability of being born. We are one of those random dots.
And times 35,000 would be the national debt.
True.
You've been looking for a topic for your first book, and I think that it's way more interesting than the stork. It's way more interesting than when a man really loves a woman. You should write a book about the turtle and the life preserver. And, parents could sit down and explain to their kids.
Forward written by Sean McConnell. I love it. AP Unfiltered writes, off the rails, LOL. He's definitely referring to Sean. Don't worry, the whole egg and sperm conversation is over now. But
the turtle and the life preserver from now on
is way better. Okay,
the turtle and the life preserver.
Well, thank the Buddhists for that. But okay. I have been doing. It is not just so cool, the probability of us being here. Also, if you look at the magnificence of the human body, that itself is a miracle. All of the different functions that work together at the same time to make us functioning human beings, and I will do segments, shows on things like skin, like the way that our skin is temperature regulated, the way that it is flexible so that we can like bend our arms and do things, but it also keeps in our blood and all of our organs. That is a trippy thing to learn about. How about the fact that we have 100,000 miles of blood vessels in our bodies? I could zoom in on any of these things, but just quickly, I want to talk about two. The brain and the eye. So let's start with the brain. It's fascinating for me to consider, how did people before scans, before the immense amount of science and technology which tells us about our body, how did people understand the way different functions of ours worked? And so people back in history used to think, like in the BC era, they used to think that your intellectual activity lived in your heart. They kind of thought there was an organ up here. You could, even just by like touching your head, you can sort of feel something. You can surmise that there's something in your head, but people thought your intellectual activity came from your heart. And we may look back on that and go, oh my God, these people who didn't have science and scans, they were so primitive in thinking that intellectual activity came from your heart. That's actually not a crazy view, because think about how you process emotions, or think about how you process just everyday life. When you're shocked, you feel it right here. When you're happy, you feel it right here. When
those people still exist. They're called Democrats.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's true. That is absolutely true. But it's not a crazy idea to have, because you feel things so much here. But anyway, Aristotle was one of the first people to go, no, I think that you actually have a brain, and I think that's what actually is the hub of your intellectual activity. But anyway, it's cool to consider what people used to think. But let's just look at the design of the brain for a moment. So we have these two hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and then in the middle, it's put together by these nerves. Each side of your body is controlled by the opposite side of your brain. So if you're left-handed, you're right brain dominant. If you're right-handed, you're left brain dominant. And the way that it kind of works is, apparently when you are growing in the womb, when that one sperm met that one egg and it was you growing in the womb, the way that your spine bends when the embryo, the fetus, is growing determines whether you're right or left brain dominant, and thus are going to be right-handed or left-handed. But what's cool is that the two sides of the brain have two different functions that are actually quite complementary but very different. So again, let's look at the brain. The right side of the brain more so controls the big picture of things, whereas the left side of the brain is more focused on detail. And so like the right side of the brain, let's say you're entering a pizza store. The right side of the brain processes that you're in a pizza store. It kind of spatially orients you. And then it is the left side of the brain which enables you to zoom in and go, I want a pepperoni slice of pizza. So there's the big picture, what's going on side, but then there's the zoom in and detail oriented side. And so when you're talking, for instance, to give another example, the right side of the brain more so controls your tone and the way you come across and the way that you emotionally convey things. But the left side of the brain is the one which picks specific words that you say. And so I'll just say quickly, Sean just made that joke about the Democrats and being heart controlled. There's this amazing article in the Epoch Times by Kenneth Lefebvre, and he's quoting the work of Ian McGilchrist. And this guy, Ian McGilchrist, compares the situation in the United States now to the left brain and the right brain. And he actually made a very Sean McConnell-esque argument where he said that the left in America is almost like a left side of the brain in isolation, where they're focusing on details without the greater context of the right side of the brain. And he said that's our problem, because we can't just, eliminate cash bail laws. We can't just do student loan forgiveness. We can't just, froth up certain ethnic and racial and religious identities and divide. Like, we can't do all of these things in isolation. We need a bigger purpose, a greater context in which to consider our decisions. And so anyway, I won't belabor this too much, but if you want to look up the article, it's great. One of the things that this author says, Ian McGilchrist, this is from his book, The Matter with Things. He says, quote, "The left brain aims to narrow things down to a certainty, while the right brain opens them up to possibility." That's literally the functions of your brain, and he's comparing that to the left and the right in America. The left pursues more certainty, where the right is more about possibility. Another example he gives is the left brain is principally concerned with the manipulation of the world. The right brain with understanding the world as a whole and how to relate to it. Pretty cool.
It's a miracle, according to you and the numbers, that we're born. It's also a miracle that we function every day. I don't know how you can hear all this stuff and not believe in God.
Totally. This is the thing, and this segment is not even intended to be like a whole science. I could go into so many more details of the brain. It's just to plant that seed of amazement that our body works this way. And you so do need the right brain and the left brain. Interestingly, when people have damage on one side of the brain, one hemisphere, it affects, sometimes they only operate with half of the world. So for instance, let's look at this plate with pasta, okay? If you have right brain damage, remember your right brain controls the left side of your body. So if you have damage to your right side of your brain, you have what's called left neglect. And so that's why on the plate, someone will eat the what's on the right side of their plate, but they'll neglect what's on the left side because they have right brain damage, which is causing them to not see or consider the left side. So that is literally the plate of someone who had right brain damage.
Really?
Yes. That is taken from a scientific journal that I found. Where you have right brain damage, you only eat half the plate. And they show that with clocks too. If you have certain right or left brain damage, you'll only draw one half of the clock, depending on which side is damaged.
So if I hit myself just right, I could lose weight?
You'd lose weight, but you'd lose a lot of other things too. But yes, that is true. Okay, so that's the brain. quickly, in just a few minutes, let's just talk about the eye, which is equally amazing. So again, I'm fascinated. How did people understand the way our bodies worked before they had science and scanning and all of that to understand it? Well, in the BC era, people thought that everything in the world was made out of 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. And they thought that your body was no different. And so for hundreds of years, even up until the relatively present day, we only came to actually understand how the eye really works in like the 1700s. But for most of human history, people thought literally there was like fire behind your eyes. And when you looked out, you were pushing out light onto the world to see the world. And again, we think these people were so primitive, they didn't understand. It's actually not very illogical, because how else, if you have no understanding of science, how else do you explain how you see things? So this is called extramission. People thought that you had literally light beams in your eyes that were illuminating all of what you're seeing. We have a picture here of Medusa. That's the whole legend with Medusa. Medusa had the eye beams, and if you looked at her, she had particularly harsh eye beams that would turn you into stone. But people thought that everyone had extramission. What we now understand is that we have intramission, where essentially light is coming into our eyes, and that is how we see images, through things entering us and we're processing, as opposed to our eyes pushing out these rays to illuminate the world. And interestingly, one of the ways that we came to understand the eye is through telescopes and cameras, mainly telescopes, because cameras are a recent invention. But people looked at the way like zooming in and zooming out and images flipping happened on telescopes. And then they kind of likened those functions to the way the human eye works.
Yeah, don't we see things upside down and our brain flips it around for us?
Funny you should
all
say
in like
that.
a split second? I'm sorry.
Funny you should say, no, that's fine. It's funny you should say that, but that is exactly what happens. We see things upside down. But first, I just want to show, like, we have 2 million working functions in our eyes alone to help us see. Because it's this whole process. Light enters our eyes. We see things upside down. As you say, our brain turns it over in a second. Also, our eyes, each eye, we're kind of seeing different things. We're seeing things from different angles. Right now, as we're looking, it looks very unified to us, but that's because our brain is making it unified to us. If we took away our brain and just looked at the activity of our eyes in isolation, we would be A, seeing things upside down, and B, we'd be seeing like dozens of different angles of all of the different things that we're looking at. So here's a picture of the eye. It shows you what a complex process of this. The thing that we see, when I'm looking at Sean and into his beautiful eyes, I'm only seeing a sixth of his eye. The actual eye, look how enormous it is. We're only seeing our pupils and like the tip of it, really. It's actually way bigger behind us, and then there's a whole set of nerves which goes to the brain. But as I said, there are 2 million parts in total between the retina, lens, cornea, nerves, which make our eyes function and see the way that we see. And we differentiate, by the way, between 10 million different colors. Like, we don't realize it, but our brain differentiates between different shades of blue, different shades of black, different shades of gray, etc. And so as Sean just said, we'll look at this image of how our brain sees things. We see things upside down because the light entering our eyes actually bends on our retina. And so that, it's kind of scientifically complicated. Honestly, it's not worth getting into, but it's the way we process light. It flips on our retina. So we're literally seeing something upside down. And then all of those 2 million parts come together, flip that object over so we see it right side up, and unifies all of the different angles that we're seeing things to make a comprehensible image. On that note, if you don't believe in God, I don't know how to help you. Goodbye. No. Seriously, though, is this all because of science? A lot of it is evolution, of course, but the thing that's incomplete to me about evolution is, yes, evolution explains how we evolved from our more primitive ancestors, but how to account for the first ancestor? Like, how did life emerge from non-life? And when you look at all these different functions, it's just, I think it evinces a creator. But at the very least, it's just damn cool. That's what I hope to bring to you, just something cool and life enriching. Thank you so much for being here. You can email me at julie@julie-hartman.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Julie R. Hartman, and I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, right here on YouTube for another live show. Take care.